Hey folks, Mark Levin here. Now, before we dive in today's episode, I want to talk about something truly valuable, protecting your financial future with gold. It's called diversification. Now, for that, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're the real deal with 5-star service and a sterling reputation. So give them a call today. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Trust me, you'll thank yourself in the future. Now let's get to the show. Results may vary. Consult with your financial professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Well, crash and burn. That was pretty exciting last night, don't you think? Oh, yes. I mean, Donald Trump was terrific. But all eyes were on Biden. All he had to do is sound like a person who had his wits, but he didn't. He had his nitwits. It was embarrassing. I'm just being honest. He looks like death worn over. And they had him loaded up with all kinds of information, and he's rambling on, and nobody knew what the hell he was talking about. I want to warn you about a couple of things, America. The Democrat Party and their media never give up. Whether they stick with him or not, they're going to plot, they're going to connive, no matter what. If that means sticking with Biden, they'll stick with Biden. Means they're going to dig even harder on Trump and attack him even harder. Look for every opportunity. These people are evil. These people are diabolical. For years, they have sought to cover up Biden's mental frailties. For years. As they got worse and worse and worse, their attacks on people who happen to notice it became more severe. More severe. They lie about audio and video. It's all right-wing plan. But last night, the whole world saw it, including people who don't normally pay attention to politics. 47.5 million people in America watched. And I'm sure many of them couldn't believe what they saw. That's the truth. Donald Trump was disciplined. He never flailed around. I think he's figured out how to do this. And he's doing it superbly. Things that were said about him by Biden, many of which were very nasty. Very nasty. But he kept his cool. I actually thought his closing statement was fabulous. His closing statement was fabulous. So let's break this down a little bit. Really, the only way the Democrats to prevent Joe Biden from getting nominated is if Joe Biden agrees not to be nominated. There are other ways. They're very tricky. They're very difficult. But you have to keep in mind, 99% of the delegates at the convention were elected or appointed in support of Biden. He controls these delegates. So, that's number one. Number two, this is a big issue to me. And I'll talk about it this week and on Life, Liberty, and Levin, Saturday and Sunday. What the Democrat Party and their media have done, bringing the Democrat Party to the brink like this, is they're about to, should they try and swap out Biden, disenfranchise tens of millions of people who voted in the Democrat primary. Tens of millions of people who voted. Tens of thousands of activists. Tens of thousands of donors. To what end? When a relative small circle of individuals working behind the scenes will kneecap Biden, effectively warning him, and trying to replace him with somebody else. And with whom should they replace him? Kamala Harris is going to go quietly, and she plays up the race and the gender issue, which she clearly will do no matter what. Gavin Newsom's been traveling from one end of the country lying through his whitened teeth about Joe Biden's state, telling us and anybody who would listen that Joe Biden is smart, he's sharp, he's talked to him many times. So Gavin Newsom is one of the liars who has sought desperately to deceive the American people. The governor of Michigan, what a mess. What a mess. So even if Biden stays in, we cannot let our guard down. These people are capable of anything. Even though he had a completely disastrous night. What do you think Jack Smith is thinking right now? What do you think Judge Merchan is thinking right now? What do you think the appellate left-wing Democrats on the courts in New York are thinking right now? They're thinking now more than ever, they got to put the legal squeeze on Trump. And I'll get to the legal issues in a moment. These are evil people. They will do anything. I mean, look at the Attorney General of the United States. He goes to the White House with a phony, a fictional privilege claim, has Biden sign it, issues it, does Biden, about keeping the audio from the Biden interview with Special Counsel Robert Hur secret from Congress, even though he doesn't have a leg to stand on, even though they released the text, even though that was altered, even though they have absolutely no constitutional or legal basis for doing it. He figures, go ahead and sue me. You won't catch me by the time the election is here. They'll do anything. Okay, look at this case involving obstruction. Those of you who listen to this program or watch me on Levin TV or watch me on Fox, we've been on top of this longer and earlier before anybody. It's what I call the Enron Obstruction Act. Sarbanes-Oxley of 2002. Now, this law was passed because after the Enron debacle, they found out that Enron destroyed reams and reams of information, knowing full well, even though they hadn't had a subpoena or even a letter, that Congress would want to investigate their collapse. So Congress passed a law. The law is very specific. If you destroy records or change records, that sort of thing, that's a criminal obstruction. So what did Jack Smith do? What does Jack Smith always does? He takes the law, he rewrites it, takes the facts, and forces them into the law. Like a square peg in a round hole or a round peg in a square hole. 1512, the statute, has absolutely nothing to do, nothing, with what took place on January 6th. It's an obstruction statute, but it's not an obstruction statute the way the Department of Justice applied it, the U.S. Attorney, against all these protesters on January 6th. And it's not an obstruction statute the way Jack Smith applied it to President Trump. Jack Smith brought 4 charges against President Trump, 2 of which were based on this false interpretation, this rewrite of this obstruction Enron statute, both of which now have been thrown out. He's got 2 left. One of them is what I call the federal contractor criminal statute. And the other one is the 1871 Klan Act. That's a civil rights act when the Klan was trying to prevent and was preventing black people from voting or involved in political activism. That has nothing to do with January 6th. Donald Trump was not involved in preventing people from voting. The federal contractor fraud, he goes on for 30 pages or so, does Smith, laying out, well, here's what he did in Michigan, and here's what he did in Arizona, and here's what he did in Georgia, and don't forget the fake electors. It has nothing to do with that statute. Nothing. And yet they call it insurrection. We actually have an insurrection statute, a federal criminal statute. Donald Trump is not charged with that. We actually have a sedition statute, both actual sedition and conspiracy to commit sedition. Donald Trump's not charged with that either, because there's not a syllable of evidence that he was involved in an insurrection or sedition, or they would have thrown it at him. So this prosecutor went looking, and he went to the bottom of the barrel, dusted off these statutes, and said, all right, I'll mold it into this. The same guy, in an 8-0 opinion where one justice recused himself, destroying the governor of Virginia, Bob McDonnell. How he changed that statute, like he's changed the obstruction statute. Now, on Monday, we'll have the immunity issue. I will be here on radio, obviously, to discuss it. It'll be after Life, Liberty, and Levin, so obviously we can't discuss it there. But I want to remind you of something. This is very important. Excuse me, I think I have COVID, as a matter of fact, but I'm going to muscle through here. I want to remind you of something. When President Trump's lawyers raised the issue of immunity, I don't think there was a legal analyst in America who said it was a legitimate defense. Except me. I didn't go as far as President Trump's lawyers, but I said there is an absolute legitimate argument on immunity. Absolute legitimate argument on immunity. That said, I also pointed out that what we have here is this prosecutor, Jack Smith, who has criminalized the election process. Things that are supposed to be resolved by Congress, that counts the electors and makes these decisions and handles disputes, he criminalized. Contacting secretaries of state, urging a second set of electors and so forth. This is normal stuff. He's criminalized it. So on top of everything else, the charge itself, in my view, is substantively illegitimate. It opens up a Pandora's box for the courts in the future, and candidates and activists don't have the foggiest idea what they can and cannot do, given the enormous ambiguity and leeway handed to now federal prosecutors and state prosecutors. So this immunity issue is a big deal. We'll see what they do on Monday. But the legal analysts, oh, that's a slam dunk case. No, it's not. They also told you that the documents case is a slam dunk case. Bill Barr was all over TV. Look, this is black and white. You don't screw with the Department of Justice when they're asking you for you turn it. Excuse me. It is hard for me to believe these people have ever been involved in litigation. It really is. You have motions that you file. And we went through the motions on the attorney-client privilege decision in district court in Washington, D.C. It turns out on Thursday, Judge Aileen Cannon said, I want to hear the arguments on this, because keep in mind, the judge who ruled that there was a crime fraud exception to the attorney-client privilege was a former Leahy staffer appointed by Obama, senior status now, who basically held a secret hearing. Secret. Well, Judge Cannon has to deal with the trial because the case against Trump on documents was brought in the wrong jurisdiction. Washington. It should have been brought in Florida, where Mar-a-Lago is. So Smith quickly moves the case down to Florida. He got his indictment in D.C. and a rubber stamp in Florida. And this judge says, well, you know what? I need to look at this. I got to resolve these motions before there's an actual trial. And so she wants to hear the arguments on this. Issues on the gag order. There's no order, but Smith is demanding an extremely broad gag order on Trump in the middle of an election. And more. The constitutionality of Smith's appointment. So significant that two former attorneys general, including my former boss, Ed Meese, have filed friend of the court briefs, as has Landmark Legal Foundation. They're very legitimate issues. So it's not a slam dunk, the documents case, for additional reasons, too, that I don't need to get into. More when I return. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, the war on our justice system, the vicious assault on President Trump, has sent our nation into uncharted waters. And trust me when I say things are going to get worse before they get better. I truly believe that. The political turmoil and uncertainty that lie ahead could have severe consequences for our economy and financial markets. But in times of crisis, there's always opportunity. And right now, I see that opportunity in diversification with gold and silver. As these tensions rise and the dollar's future becomes increasingly uncertain, gold has the potential to go even higher. That's why I trust Advantage Gold. They're experts at helping Americans take steps to help safeguard their wealth with precious metals. Call them right now. 800-900-8000. Don't wait. Get their free 2024 gold and silver kit, plus a special Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300 if you qualify. The future may be unpredictable, but your financial security doesn't have to be. So call Advantage Gold right now. 800-900-8000. There's no risk. There's no pressure. That's 800-900-8000. Get your special Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300 for qualified customers today. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. I haven't been on Fox all week, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because I'm very busy, to be perfectly honest with you. I have other things like this, and Blaze, and writing. So I've saved my thoughts about the lead up to the debate, post-debate, for Life, Liberty, and Levin, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, whatever time it is in your community. And I encourage you to go ahead and set your DVR, whether or not you think you're going to be able to watch it live. And we're going to have fantastic guests, Brent Bozell and Brett Tolman. That's Saturday night. Sunday night, Vivek Ramaswamy, who I've never had on, and John Yoo. I encourage you to watch it. We get into things that others do not. I explain the law a little differently than other people. And so stick with us. I'll be right back. My fellow Americans, the phony conviction of Donald Trump has sent a clear message. Our country is in deep trouble. Our rule of law is under attack, and the integrity of our elections may well be in jeopardy. In times of political chaos like this, it's crucial to protect your wealth and secure your financial future. That's where my good friends at Advantage Gold come in. Please call them now. 800-900-8000. Get their free 2024 gold and silver kit to help protect your money against times like these with physical, precious metals. Plus, tell them I sent you, and they'll give you a special Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300 if you qualify. No one can predict the future, but you can prepare for it. Call Advantage Gold today, 800-900-8000. Get your free gold and silver kit right now. Plus, Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300 for qualified customers today. 800-900-8000. Give it a try. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professionals.
This is the Octagon of Talk Radio, the Mark Levin Show. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
So the two big decisions today, the obstruction issue, where the court shot down the Department of Justice's use of the Enron Obstruction Act, effectively, which had no application of January 6 whatsoever. But the district courts in Washington, the circuit court panel with two Biden appointees, they applied it anyway. Why? Because these are lawless lawyers in black robes. That's why. Not a single damn federal district judge said, wait a minute, that's not what this statute says. Not one of them. Not one of them. And yet, read it. It says what it says. And by the way, Amy Coney Barrett wrote the dissent, signed on by Kagan and Sotomayor. She's gone, folks. She was a liar who lied to get the nomination. We've been through this before. She's gone. She's a liar. We may get a good decision out of her from time to time, but it's a matter of crossing your fingers and hoping. She has no basic approach to constitutional interpretation, which means she'll do whatever she wants. But Judge Jackson joined the majority. And that's where he got the 6-3. Jackson joined the majority. But then there's another case. A hugely important case that we've talked about here before, involving the massive power of the federal bureaucracy. And that massive power is not in the Constitution. It was granted to the federal bureaucracy in a decision in 1984 by the court, creating what they call the Chevron Doctrine. And to put it in plain English, what that means is, this doctrine, is that the bureaucracy can issue a regulation, can enforce a regulation, and adjudicates the regulation if there's any claim against the regulation. So in other words, you don't have a shot. Well, in West Virginia versus EPA, which Landmark Legal was involved in, the court started to chip away at it. It's a couple of years back. And then there was this big case involving a fishery, where the federal agency overseeing fisheries not only put out a regulation, not only put demands on this fishery, but said, we are going to post one of our employees on your boat, in your fishery, and you're going to pay for it because we don't have the budget for this. So that fishery sued and said, what the hell are you talking about? You don't have the power to do this. The Supreme Court took it up. Again, Landmark Legal Foundation filed another friend of the court brief. Brilliant brief. I say that I didn't write it. It's headed by Pete Hutchison, who's fantastic. We got Matt Forays and Mike O'Neill and a great team there. And the court ruled today 6-3. The usual three suspects. That what they decided in 1984 was wrong, and they overruled themselves. So they overruled the Chevron Doctrine. They overruled that case. And they said, now, what happens? Well, there's judicial review. Rather than the bureaucracy being given all this power by the court abandoning its own authority under the Constitution, that is the judiciary, now you can actually bring a lawsuit and have a judge hear the case. Before you couldn't. If there's ambiguity or reasonableness, silly phrases like that. Now, what does this mean? This means this massive, lawmaking, unelected faceless, nameless bureaucracy, in many instances, can now at least be sued and you'll have your day in court. That's the way it was pre-1984. But 40 years ago, they destroyed that. So now we're back to where we were and should have been. That your judiciary is exercising its constitutional powers over administrative agencies, which are not even in the Constitution, rather than the administrative agencies having all power, legislative, executive, and judicial, within itself. So the climate liars are freaking out. All of those who have relied on these bureaucracies to advance their radical socialist agenda are furious. But ladies and gentlemen, this is what we call representative government. This is a big, big deal. Earlier in the week, from time to time as I was watching coverage of us waiting for these decisions to come out, they kept talking about the decision involving obstruction, as well as the other decision, immunity. I'm just being honest, so I sent an email around to our friends at Fox. I said, there's another decision that appears to be under the radar, and it shouldn't be. It is a big damn case. And I alerted them to it. And their coverage today was stellar. It was superb. Because this is a big damn case. And we're going to wait Monday, apparently, for the immunity case. I'm a little nervous about it. We'll see what happens. But I'll tell you what's interesting. Now that the court has knocked out 2 of the 4 charges against Donald Trump, as an example, these other 2 charges against Donald Trump need to be litigated too. Through some process, interlocutory appeal, before the trial actually gets underway in any significant way, because these 2 laws are also being bastardized in a significant way, just as the obstruction law was bastardized. Keep in mind who Jack Smith is. Jack Smith is the chief bastardization of American law. It's what he does. That's why he's gummed up there in Florida, where you have a real federal judge who's asking real questions because these constitutional issues have been raised as a result of the litigation. This is why the same media who has lied to you over and over again about Russia collusion, about the Hunter laptop, about Joe Biden being Einstein, is in such a rush to get these cases done. They were thrilled with Mershon and Bragg and Manhattan. They love that Stalinist star chamber. That's the way to do it, baby. So if you actually have a judge that says, wait a minute, I got to deal with this motion. It's a serious motion. Oh, she's a Trump judge. She's just slow walking this. So in other words, we have to accommodate the media and the Democrat Party in our courtrooms. I'm telling you, these people are evil. They're diabolical. And I can already sense that they're starting to circle the wagons around Biden. I could be wrong. Who knows? But I don't trust any of them. And neither should you. All right. Let's have a little fun. We have a montage. The media's panicking over what they saw last night with Joe Biden. Cut 5, go.
President Biden's struggles in some ways overshadowing the multiple lies and grievances from former President Trump.
The universal reaction was somewhere approaching panic. The people who were texting with me were very concerned about President Biden seeming extremely
Let's slow down a second here. Keep in mind, these are media folks and Democrats who are texting with each other. I mean, they expose themselves. They don't even realize it. Go ahead.
Week.
And I think there's a lot of people who are going to want to see him consider taking a different course now. But that was not what we needed from Joe Biden, and it's personally painful for a lot of people. It's not just panic, it's pain of what we saw tonight.
It was an unmitigated disaster for President Biden from the second he walked out to the closing statement.
Yeah, look, it was a really disappointing debate performance from Joe Biden. I don't think there's any other way to slice it.
By the way, it's almost impossible to tell the media types from the Democrat operatives, isn't it, with their comments? They're all the same thing. Go ahead.
Whether he should continue.
I don't think we should sugarcoat this. This was not the debate performance that the Biden campaign team wanted or needed.
Nobody is a bigger fan of Kamala Harris than I am. And Gavin Newsom did a remarkable job tonight as a surrogate. Those two people are signaling to a whole lot of Americans that are paying attention, how come they're not running?
Joe Biden had an awful night, a terrible night.
This is the last chance for Democrats to decide whether this man we've known and loved for a very long time is up to the task of running for president of the United States.
Now, let's stop there. That had to be very hard for Joe, seriously. I know they're close friends. I know they talk all the time, according to media reports. Joe, and I tried to advise him on this program, don't go there, Joe. Joe put his neck way out, attacking anyone and everyone who pointed out the clips and so forth. And you could hear his somber voice. I understand it. That the Democrats have to decide what they're going to do. That had to be hard for him. And all these people. Go ahead.
Today, Joe Biden looks like the caricature that conservative media has been painting. And there were no clips tonight, right? This was, you saw it before your eyes.
Chuck Todd has been demoted, and for good reason. Go ahead.
And every aide that I've spoken to, Democrats are deeply worried about what they saw from the president.
He couldn't finish a thought. He couldn't land an answer. And his closing thoughts were even botched. I mean, come on.
I don't believe he's our best choice at this point.
Last night was one of those to see if he was up to the job. And the resounding answer last night anyway was no.
I got to believe that the Trump team is collecting all these clips for some great ads down the road. Donnie Douche has given up on his man, Biden, Mr. Producer. But here's the deal. They created Biden. They protected Biden. They attacked his opponents. They attacked anybody who pointed out the obvious, whether it was special counsel Hur, whether it was Wall Street Journal journalists, whether it was clips in and of themselves, part of right-wing Fox media. They did everything they could. And so I want you to understand something. When you know that the man you're backing, protecting, advocating for, doesn't have the wits to be president of the United States, and you're still trying to get him over the finish line, you must hate America. You must hate this country. You must not give a damn at all. Because that's not the kind of person we want in the Oval Office. I started talking about the 25th Amendment about a year ago. The Vice President of the United States, the Cabinet, will never trigger it. Party first, power first, country is a distant third, if a third at all. Again, they're evil, they're diabolical, the media, the Democrat Party, one and the same. And they will do what they think they need to do to win this election, whether it's to continue with Biden or try and find somebody else, whatever it is, it is. And they're not going to stop with the war against Donald Trump at every way and on every level and to every degree. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The war against Donald Trump, which is ongoing, has turned our legal and political system into a nightmare. With the 2024 elections on the horizon, we could be facing a period of unprecedented instability and uncertainty. But you can protect and grow your wealth by investing in gold and silver. Precious metals have always served as a safe haven during times of political and economic turmoil. And with the expert guidance of my good friends at Advantage Gold, you can navigate this insane climate with confidence. Call Advantage Gold right now. 800-900-8000. They'll send you a free 2024 gold and silver kit that tells you how to help keep your money safe when things are bad. Plus, tell them I sent you, and they'll give you a special Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300 if you qualify. Call Advantage Gold, 800-900-8000. Get your special Mark Levin discount worth up to $1,300 for qualified customers. That's 800-900-8000. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. Two great shows this weekend. Saturday, Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Whatever time it is in your community, I would ask you to go ahead and set your DVR just in case. And our guests on Saturday, Brent Bozell and Britt Tolman. Our guest on Sunday, Vivek Ramaswamy and John Yoo. Killer. And, of course, moi. That's right, me. Providing you with the kind of information I think that you would want. How much time do I have, Rich? Oh, not. Okay, here's Corinne What's-Her-Name on Air Force One today. What was Biden's problem? Cut 6, go.
Can you tell us more about his cold? When did he contract it? What did it affect his performance last night?
For COVID. So, okay, step back for a second. So, yes, and I think we shared this with many people yesterday. The president had a cold. He had a sore throat. That happens, and that's what you heard last night. And you know, I'll leave it there. I don't have anything else to add. I
hope they're paying her a hell of a lot of money for being a buffoon. For all time. Audio, video, for all time. Go ahead.
Just moments ago. But yes, he had a cold. He had a sore throat. Once he knew that he had a cold and a sore throat, he certainly tested for COVID. It was negative, and then we moved on from there.
Why did the White House wait until the middle of the debate to release that information?
I'll tell you this. Look, he had a strong debate prep week, and he got a cold, which happens. It happens. It's not unusual. It's not something, I mean, you don't share every time, the president has a cold. It happened.
No, but you did share it. You shared it in the middle of the debate when he was sinking like a rock. So it's nothing to do with him having a cold. We know what it is. He has stage 5 out of 7 stages of dementia. It's that simple. Go ahead.
Once he had the cold and had a sore throat, again, he tested negative for COVID, and then we moved on.
We didn't ask if he had COVID. We didn't even ask if he had a cold. You said he had a cold, and that's your excuse? For what we saw? No. This is nothing to do with that. They're still lying. And I'm telling you, you can't trust these people. They are not burying Joe Biden yet, regardless of what the New York Times says. And they wrote an editorial that I'll get to next hour. They're not going to bury him. Now, they may eventually bury him, but not right now. They're still fighting. Jill is fighting. Jill loves the trappings of power. And I think you're going to love the fact that on Life, Liberty, and Levin, I really dig into Jill Biden and I compare her to some historical figures, which nobody else has done because nobody wants to expose her. So I will. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. First of all, the New York Slimes, at approximately 6 p.m. this evening, released this editorial: to serve his country, President Biden should leave the race. I say this to the New York Times: go screw yourselves. Go screw off. Like you have the country's interest at heart. The editorial board is a group of opinion journalists, they write, whose views are informed by expertise, research, debate, certain long-standing values, and our radical Marxist Islamist leftism. I added that. It is separate from the newsroom, President Biden has repeatedly and rightfully described the stakes in this November's presidential election as nothing less than the future of American democracy. The people that backed Stalin, the people that covered up the Holocaust, the people who helped install Castro are going to teach us about democracy. Donald Trump has proved himself to be a significant jeopardy to that democracy. No, he hasn't. An erratic and self-interested figure unworthy of public trust. That's how I view the New York Times. Systematically attempted to undermine, yak. Undermine the integrity of elections. Now, we've played for you. The radical left Democrats in 2000 saying Bush didn't win. And that would include Biden, Raskin, the other frauds, phonies, and reprobates. Same thing in 2004. John Kerry actually won. Same thing in 2016. Same thing in Georgia. Same thing over and over again. But you see, Donald Trump has been charged with preposterous crimes. His supporters, that would be us, have described publicly a 2025 agenda that would give him the power to carry out the most extreme of his promises and threats. Like what? What are you talking about? If he is returned to office, he has vowed to be a different kind of president, unrestrained by the checks on power built into the American political system. This is precious, coming from the Marxist left New York Times, which hates the Constitution, which pushed the 1619 Project into our elementary schools. This is really precious. That backs Joe Biden's evisceration of separation of powers and the evisceration of our sovereignty. We don't need lectures from Marxist Islamists about democracy. But, of course, it's the New York Slimes. All the news that's fit to crap on. Mr. Biden has said he is the candidate with the best chance of taking on this threat of tyranny, and defeating it. His argument rests largely in the fact that he beat Mr. Trump in 2020. That is no longer a sufficient rationale for why Mr. Biden should be the Democratic nominee this year. Now, I want to remind you that the earliest of the owners of the New York Times, some of them were Confederates, racists. You understand? And as people were screaming for their lives on the cattle trains, in the showers, in the ovens, in Auschwitz and elsewhere, the New York Times covered it up. At Thursday's debate, the president needed to convince the American public that he was equal to the formidable demands of the office he's seeking to hold for another term. Voters, however, cannot be expected to ignore what was instead plain to see. Mr. Biden is not the man he was 4 years ago. Now, my question to you folks, I'm not going to read any more of this because I don't care. My question to you folks is this. Why didn't they write that before the debate, Mr. Producer? The New York Times knows that the guy is a certified, and I don't say this to mock him, but he is a certified imbecile. They know it. They saw the Her report. They read the story in the Wall Street Journal. They've seen what we see. They hear what we hear. So they only wait till after the debate. They're hoping that he has a good enough debate performance where they can continue to cover for him and continue to promote him. But he didn't. And if the New York Times is anything, it's for power. That's right. The New York Times believes, and in some ways they're right, that they control the Democrat Party. Now, you might say, well, I don't read the New York Times. The people who read the New York Times tend to be the establishment, the self-appointed elitists. So they don't even have to have a big subscriber base anymore. Their focus is on influencing the so-called deciders, like Gremsky, top-down communism. New York Times, top-down Marxism, Islamism. It is a contemptible rag with no morality, no principles whatsoever. Contemptible. And it's got a long history of just that, with blood on its hands. So they write this long editorial because they're self-aggrandizing egomaniacs and they want to influence this process. Now, the fact that Gavin Newsom is a failed governor, disaster. The fact that he's been running all over the country talking about how brilliant Joe Biden is. The fact that Ron DeSantis kicked his ass in that debate apparently doesn't matter because they figure, all right, we had Slick Willie, now we'll have Slick Gavin, and we'll get him across the finish line. Or Kamala Harris. What are they going to do about her? She's a nut. She's a clown. How are they going to get her out of the way? Whitmer of Michigan, are you kidding me? She's frighteningly stupid. But it doesn't matter again. And what about all those people who voted New York Times? Throughout the spring and early summer, tens of millions of voters in the Democrat primaries who decided it would be Biden, and they changed the process, did the DNC, so South Carolina would go first to ensure that Joe Biden would get the nomination. They prevented Robert Kennedy Jr. from running against Joe Biden in the Democrat primaries. Is that the kind of democracy you people are talking about? This is all collusion between certain Democrat bigwigs and the New York Times. And don't be fooled. Even though Obama put out his fairly weak statement, Obama is partly behind this. Obama wants to get Biden out. He's never liked Biden. He didn't endorse him in the Democrat primary the first time around. He thinks he's an idiot. Biden literally has done more to advance the Marxist Islamist agenda than Obama. And he's done that, Biden, with all the Obamaites who surround him. So Obama's the invisible hand. Bill Clinton, not so much. Obama doesn't want Biden in there because he doesn't think he can win. Now, if he thinks he can win, he doesn't care if Biden has the IQ of a hard-boiled egg. It doesn't matter to him. He'll keep advancing his pro-Islamist, pro-Marxist agenda. Just as well. Same with Bernie Sanders. He endorsed Biden. He knows Biden is not with it, but he doesn't care. They're advancing their agenda. They don't believe in democracy while they keep talking about it. They keep writing about it. They keep claiming they're defending it when they're not. They don't believe in it. Period. These are dangerous people with these platforms. And they've done everything they could to conceal the real Joe Biden. And then came the debate. Now, why was this debate so early? I'll tell you why the debate was early. Because the powers that be wanted it to be early. And they convinced the Bidens that it should be early. But why did the powers that be want it early? So they would still have time left before the August Democrat Party convention in Chicago to try and knock off Joe. That's why. Now, don't get me wrong. They wanted Joe to do well. They wanted to drag him across the finish line. But just in case, they wanted a really early, historically early debate, well before the Democrat convention, because they could see that he's declining quickly. And by that, I mean he's now what I call on the other side of the mountain. It's sad. It's depressing. It's upsetting if you're a family member. I've seen it. He's on the dark side of the mountain. And once that happens, the problems become worse and almost overwhelming. The election's in November. That's a long way away for somebody who has dementia. It truly is. Now, their problem is that Joe Biden controls all the delegates. 99% of them. And their problem is, and I'll keep mentioning this because nobody else is, the New York Times, just keep this in mind, this is important. The New York Times is perfectly happy with disenfranchising millions and millions of Democrat Party primary voters. I want to hear any more about how they support voting that we're for suppression and repression and whatever else, they're the ones who are calling on the Democrat Party bigwigs, the special interests in Washington and elsewhere, the money interests, to completely eliminate what's taken place before, all the voting, all the contributions, the money spent, the activism. Broom it and install somebody else. Install somebody else. Does that sound democratic to you, Mr. Producer? The Democrat Party rules don't make that easy. But the New York Times is pushing, Politico's pushing, Slate is pushing, Axios is pushing, CNN is pushing, MSNBC is pushing. A lot of pushers out there. But don't trust them. They can reverse course in a minute. Joe Biden gave a speech today at a campaign rally where he was reading off the monitor. He had more energy. He was able to complete his sentences. And already, they're talking up about how it's too early to write off Joe Biden. So you have these sort of schizophrenic positions within the Democrat Party. I think the New York Times saw that and went into action and put out their editorial. But it doesn't matter. These people are unscrupulous. They will do anything for power. And that only not includes the media, but the media are the tip of the spear. If we had an honest media, we wouldn't be in these positions, would we? I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Did you know one of the largest U.S. flags in the state of Georgia stands proudly in Pure Talk's parking lot? To honor that flag, Pure Talk is supporting America's Warrior Partnership in their mission to prevent veteran suicide. For our servicemen and women, the transition to civilian life can be very difficult, especially now. Access to housing, employment, and even their earned VA benefits can be very difficult. That's where America Warriors Partnership steps in by providing real support where and when our vets need it most. And you can help this noble cause when you switch to Pure Talk's 5G service and support this great charity. Through Flag Day, they'll match every dollar donated up to $50,000. Choose a wireless company that shares your values and puts you on America's most dependable 5G network for just $20 a month. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN to make the switch. That's puretalk.com/Levin for superior cell phone service. That's half the price of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, and to help Pure Talk with vets in need. Well, this was a little painful to watch this clip, and I take no glee out of this. On the Morning Joe show today, cut 11, go.
Hold on a second. That I agree with everything you said, except for the last part of it. Everybody calm down, and I'll tell you why. I mean, it's fine to not spin what happened last night, and we're not going to. Again,
by the way,
he had
Mika,
a terrible night.
Mika, everybody's calm here.
No,
you're the only one raising your voice.
No,
Everybody is calm here.
But again, it's the let's just immediately pull this. Let's end this. Let's find someone else.
That's not what Mike said.
That attitude toward this is what I am saying slow down on. Because, again, there's no spinning it. But let's be balanced. Let's, for once, show some balance in a media world that is so shrill with imbalance that we've become inured to the difference between these two candidates.
Okay, I'm not sure what that last part means. I don't think I could get away with that on TV with my wife, Mr. Producer. Matter of fact, I know I could not. Just saying. So, Joe must have been irritated from something else. That said, forget about balance and all the rest. She's right about something here. They're not going to show him the door this quickly, and he's not going to go through the door this quickly. I don't care what we want and what we think. There's a bit of a struggle going on within the Democrat Party. And we're the least of those who know exactly what's going on. It's way under our radar. But you better believe there are people who are positioning, including people who would love to be the nominee of the Democrat Party should something happen to Biden. But you're not going to just have to get past Joe. You're going to have to get past Jill. And I talk about this weekend. It's Jill. Jill is the culprit. Jill wants the power. Jill likes the White House, the helicopters, the jets, the title. It's Jill. She's the issue. She is, such as it is, the power behind the idiot. I spoke to my wife about this today, and we agreed. Honest to God, folks, if I were this way, and I wanted to run for president or to continue to do this show, for that matter, my wife would tell me, no, it's time. And we would focus on our lives. We would focus on mental health. We would focus on these things. Excuse me. It's Jill Biden. Just as it was Mrs. Wilson when her husband had a stroke. But it's Jill Biden. She is the power, and she's saying no. She's humiliating her husband. I talked about this last month. I've talked about it last year. She's humiliating her husband, but she doesn't care. Here's more from Joe Scarborough. Cut 12, go.
But the door was opened so many times. This race should not be close. We've been asking, why is this race close? We have no idea why this race is close. We saw last night why this race has been close and why I fear Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States unless things change.
Mm-hmm. And that, of course, is a complete reversal by him prior to the debate. Now, I don't understand it, to be honest with you. He's very close to Biden. Reportedly, they talk a lot to each other. He doesn't realize that. He's been to the White House. He knows firsthand. So I don't really understand that. Door's been wide open so many times. And also, look how they condescend. Not just him, but others. Look how they condescend. Donald Trump is a damn good candidate. Donald Trump has 4 years of a record that they may not like, but a lot of Americans do like. Economic records, border records, foreign policy records. I mean, we had economic growth right after the pandemic as well. We had a fairly secure border, more secure than I can ever remember in my lifetime. There was no war in the Middle East. There was no war between Russia and Ukraine. You know, these were good times. I'll be right back. Did you know one of the largest U.S. flags in the state of Georgia stands proudly in Pure Talk's parking lot? To honor that flag, Pure Talk is supporting America's Warrior Partnership in their mission to prevent veteran suicide. For our servicemen and women, the transition to civilian life can be very difficult, especially now. Access to housing, employment, and even their earned VA benefits can be very difficult. That's where America Warriors Partnership steps in by providing real support where and when our vets need it most. And you can help this noble cause when you switch to Pure Talk's 5G service and support this great charity. Through Flag Day, they'll match every dollar donated up to $50,000. Choose a wireless company that shares your values and puts you on America's most dependable 5G network for just $20 a month. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN to make the switch. That's puretalk.com/Levin for superior cell phone service. That's half the price of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, and to help Pure Talk with vets in need.
This is the nation's town hall meeting, and you can join in at 877-381-3811.
All right, folks. Trump at the debate last night. Cut 29, Mr. Producer. Go.
As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one who wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
Bullseye and hilarious, in my humble opinion. Bullseye and hilarious. He's become like a Palestinian, but a very bad one because they don't like him either. I thought that was quite good, didn't you, Mr. Producer? Now here's Joe Biden trying to discuss and explain Roe v. Wade. Cut 30, go.
7 states, I'll let you do that. This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. The first time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state.
All right, stop. That's not correct. The first time, there's no restrictions. The first trimester. The second trimester, it's between a doctor and a woman. The third trimester, the state is free to regulate it. It's not between the state and the woman. The state's free to regulate it. He's also a liar. Because as soon as Roe was overturned, because it was an unconstitutional opinion, even Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Saint Ruth Bader Ginsburg, said that the decision was absurd, in her own words. So you have the Dobbs decision that leaves it to the states, which is what people wanted. And now there's more abortions than there's been in God knows how long, so the Democrats should be celebrating this. But you can never have enough abortions if you're a Democrat. Why? I don't know. It's very sick. It's very sick. And so he does support, his party supports abortion on demand, right up to the last second, infanticide. Roe did not go that far, as a matter of fact. His party opposed parental notification for minors, 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old is pregnant. They opposed parental notification and a whole bunch of other issues that the American people widely support, broadly support. Biden and his party do not. So he lies. Go ahead.
Politicians, the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health.
Founders didn't want politicians making decisions about women's health. But lawmakers do make laws about people, about their lives, making decisions about penalizing people or not penalizing people all the time. You have a death penalty in some states. You don't have a death penalty in some states. You have a death penalty in some states. It is an arduous process. You have a death penalty in some states that is arduous, but not as arduous as in other states. Some things in some states are misdemeanors. Some things in other states are felonies. And so lawmakers make laws all the time. And this guy believes in that. He's done this his whole life. But apparently when it comes to abortion, he doesn't even recognize the existence of another human being. I don't understand this, Mr. Bidus. You're a Catholic, right, right, Rich? Is that what the church teaches? No. Now, I'm not even going by the religious aspect of this. I'm going by the obvious aspect of this. If you have a baby that is capable, let's start with the easiest, of living outside the womb. Can we all agree that's a human being? Now, in the case of a woman's health, we know from data that it's almost never for the woman's health. If you can make the case, great, you can make the case. But in most cases, it has nothing to do with that. This has everything to do with 2 things. Planned Parenthood, which is a massive abortion industry that takes in, over a course of years, billions and billions of dollars of your tax money. And Planned Parenthood, with a political organization that will be giving $40 million to the Biden campaign or some tributary that supports the Biden campaign. That's how it works. So they get on their high horse and say, women's reproductive rights. What have I told you about that phrase, reproductive, year after year after year? That doesn't even make any sense since there's no reproduction taking place. It's not that I want to get into this all day. I don't. Let's listen to President Trump's response. Go.
Ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again,
let's stop right there. 7 blue states have no restrictions on abortion. None. None. And I will continue to the day I am no longer breathing to say, if any broadcast company had the guts to show what that looks like, an abortion in the 9th month, in the 8th month, an abortion right before birth, this country would rise up against what Biden and the Democrat Party support. Our country would rise up. It is so gruesome. It is so grotesque. You literally have to execute that baby in the womb and pull it out. You literally have to drain the brains out of that baby, a fully formed baby, and pull it out dead. And there's no doubt that the former Democrat governor of Virginia, Northam, said what he said. He's a doctor. He said what he said. What happens if you have a botched abortion? And he said, well, you deliver the baby, you put it on the, whatever he said, the table and so forth. And then you have a discussion, the mother and the doctor. A discussion about what? Nobody's fabricating this. It's on audio tape. It's a video. He did it in a radio interview. He did it in a radio interview. Go ahead.
Yeah. Put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
You're lying. That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die.
No, but you and your party provide for that in 7 states, and you want to nationalize it. I've read to you, ladies and gentlemen, from the bill that they voted on months and months ago, actually a year or two ago, after the Dobbs decision, when they rushed this bill to the floor of the Senate and they voted on it. This bill did everything I said it does and everything Trump says it does. So they pretend this is about Roe v. Wade. It has nothing to do with Roe v. Wade. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Did you know one of the largest U.S. flags in the state of Georgia stands proudly in Pure Talk's parking lot? To honor that flag, Pure Talk is supporting America's Warrior Partnership in their mission to prevent veteran suicide. For our servicemen and women, the transition to civilian life can be very difficult, especially now. Access to housing, employment, and even their earned VA benefits can be very difficult. That's where America Warriors Partnership steps in by providing real support where and when our vets need it most. And you can help this noble cause when you switch to Pure Talk's 5G service and support this great charity. Through Flag Day, they'll match every dollar donated up to $50,000. Choose a wireless company that shares your values and puts you on America's most dependable 5G network for just $20 a month. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN to make the switch. That's puretalk.com/Levin for superior cell phone service. That's half the price of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, and to help Pure Talk with vets in need. Well, this was certainly interesting. Biden. You know, Trump is 3 years younger than me. No, Trump is like 30 years younger than you. We're talking about what's between the years. Cut 31, go.
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term.
He won't end his second term because he'll be in the latter stages of dementia. And what the Democrats were hoping to do is get him elected and then pull him when it's obvious that he can't function. Temporarily replace him with Kamala Harris. and then figure out the best way to keep control of the White House in the next election cycle. Go ahead.
About your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s.
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized as being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 50 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs.
What did he say? 15 million new jobs? That's not what happened. Ladies and gentlemen, what happened was the pandemic was over, jobs came back, the economy was growing. He takes credit for that. He also spent an additional $2 trillion on top of the COVID money that was spent and blew out the budget. That's why you have massive inflation. That money has to go somewhere. It's not going to you. But because you print all this cash, all this paper, and it doesn't have gold or silver or peanuts as a standard, well, that's how the money is devalued. It doesn't have the value it used to have, but you create inflation, which increases interest rates and the prices on goods, services. Go ahead.
Over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought off a lot of people. The whole idea of computer chips. We used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people.
You know what I was thinking all during this debate? That's enough for him. You know what I was thinking, America? This guy's been in Washington half a century. A senator for 36 years, vice president for 8, president for 4. Effectively half a century. Talks about what he's going to do, what we need to do, what should have been done. Excuse me. You had your chance, and you had your chance, and your chance, and your chance, and your chance. The other thing is the questions. I know Jake and Dana are being flattered. People are praising them, not me. Because the vast majority of these questions were about how you're going to grow the welfare state. On the one hand, at the beginning of the debate, they say, the budget's out of control. What are you going to do to cut spending? And then for the rest of the night, it was child care, drug prices. What are you going to do? In other words, what new programs, what expansion on programs, how much more spending? Because this is the mindset of the media and the left. No questions about how you're going to expand individual liberty. How are you going to protect families from the teachers' unions? In other words, nothing, very little from our perspective. MRC and Newsbusters took a look at this, and they said that the majority of the questions were based on a liberal perspective. Some were based on a neutral perspective, and only 3 were based on a relatively conservative perspective. And I'm just pointing that out myself, that I found most of these questions having to do with the welfare state. Am I supposed to do something, Mr. Producer? All right, good. I have no computer, America. I don't want to whine to you. I've got no computer. Excuse me. I've got no printer, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm doing things off the computer and off my iPhone. In addition to struggling with what I know is to be this COVID. So we're doing, I think, as well as we can do. I'll bet you I would have done a better job debating a leftist with this than Joe Biden did debating Donald Trump with a cold. They're so full of crap. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. David Harnassi, who I like, he wrote in his column that Biden brings up Charlottesville. There's a Charlottesville that occurs in this country every day, he points out, with the attacks on Jews And he doesn't seem to give a damn. And, of course, we know the Charlottesville tag on Trump has been a lie from day one. Right here in this seat, at this desk, behind this microphone, in this facility, I pointed out when it happened. Everybody was shaking, so nervous. Now we have here the Council on American Islamic Relations. Now, we all know that this is a Hamas front group, that it was founded by Hamas in Philadelphia. We know this because the FBI was wiretapping the meeting. They said we need an American organization, a front group, obviously to do our dirty work, and it's CARE, Council on American Islamic Relations. And, of course, they put out a statement that's picked up by Reuters by Kanisha Singh. Trump criticized for Palestinian insult in debate with Biden. By whom? Oh, CARE. So the American media runs with this. The Council on American Islamic Relations advocacy group, no, it's a Hamas front group. Said Biden was wrong to claim that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wants the war to end, while adding it viewed Trump's Palestinian comment in the debate as a racist insult. Why? You didn't put out a statement saying River to the Sea is a racist insult. You didn't put out a statement condemning swastikas. In fact, your boy out there in L.A. having a hell of a good time, slamming and slurring Jews all over the place. Here's what they say. Former President Trump's use of Palestinian as an insult was racist. President Biden's touting his military support for the Israeli government genocide in Gaza was callous, says Corey Saylor, research and advocacy director at CARE, said in a statement, Israel denies allegations of genocide. Oh, that's nice of Reuters. Again, this group is a Hamas front group. To insulate that being Palestinian is somehow a bad thing, a former President Trump did when he called President Biden Palestinian reeks of racism and anti-Arab hatred, said Paul O'Brien, executive director of Amnesty International USA, told Reuters. So they go to all these crackpot left-wing organizations. Human rights advocates have reported a rise in Islamophobia. There we go. A rise in Islamophobia. What Donald Trump said was not only fine, it was accurate. It was accurate. You don't candy coat what's going on. We know exactly what he was talking about. We know exactly who he meant. And CARE, a Hamas front group, why would Reuters run with a Hamas front group statement and put it on their wire service? Because Reuters is anti-Semitic. That's why. And they've been for a long damn time. I believe it's based in Britain, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. But they're a lousy wire service, Reuters. And honestly, I don't have the time or the energy, or nor do I care to demonstrate it, but if I ever have to, I certainly will, Mr. Producer. Yes. And over at the Jerusalem Post, very bad Palestinian. Trump slams Biden's Israel performance at presidential debate. Two candidates used the war in Gaza as the centerpiece of their debate, with Biden adding that only Hamas wants to be at war and Trump placing partial blame on Israel. That's not what he did. Israel wants to defeat Hamas. See, the Jerusalem Post is liberal, so you can't win. It's liberal. And way too often you have self-haters who write for the Jerusalem Post and their editorials. They hate Netanyahu. They used to be a much more conservative paper. Not anymore. We're still pushing hard for them to accept, meaning Hamas, a terrorist group. He added that Hamas has been greatly weakened and should be eliminated. He just doesn't want them actually eliminated, does he? While not naming Prime Minister Netanyahu, Biden acknowledged Netanyahu's claims that he's denied Israel weapons. Yes, they have. They're slow walking him to this date. To this date. Now, why would a Hamas front group like CARE be essential to the Democrat Party? Why would a Hamas front group like CARE be visiting Democrat departments, that is, Democrat-controlled departments under Biden, Democrat-controlled agencies, and the White House under Biden and Obama? Why isn't that controversial? Well, we know why. We know why. Now, I don't think this debate changed one mind in this audience. It was never going to change anybody's mind. We already knew about Biden. We already knew what we saw. But even if he was Einstein, which obviously he's the opposite, he's the anti-Einstein, it wouldn't matter. The guy's a one-man wrecking ball. He's a one-man arsonist. He doesn't create things. He doesn't develop things. He doesn't support those who do create things and develop things. He burns things down. Many examples. We have less oil in our emergency oil reserve than we did when Biden took over. A lot less. Because he squandered it for political reasons. To try and control the massive price increases on your gasoline, which he caused by destroying energy independence. It's that simple. We have massive subsidies, massive, of the automobile industry for electric vehicles. Otherwise, as Trump said, they'd be going broke because nobody wants these vehicles. Dealers can't sell them. You don't want them. And he's going to destroy the automobile industry because they're forcing these automobile companies to eventually eliminate gasoline-run combustion engine automobiles through the EPA, through CAFE standards. 68.5 miles for a vehicle, that's not going to happen. I mean, it's just not going to happen, and that car will be very, very deadly because you can't have the metals, you can't have what you need, the cage in a car to protect you. Joe doesn't care, does he? So when you look at this, Joe Biden, he's a destroyer. The border, he didn't have any answer to that. None. How could he? He just lies. Yeah, stuff like that. Now, as for the questions and so forth, let's see here. I'm looking for my Media Research Center piece here. Just give me a second. All right. Let's go to cut 13 there. That's good. Go.
Then let's start with the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
So that was probably it. That's those 3, which were pretty good. But that was it. Then we have the whole welfare state stuff going on and so forth and so on. Let's see here. And so CNN's debate questions weighed heavily to the left, only 3 from the right. And that's what they pointed out. While it was obvious to all that President Biden's debate performance was an unmitigated disaster. Let's see here. It wasn't for CNN's lack of skewing the debate questions in Biden's favor. According to a Newsbusters analysis of the questions, there were 11 from the left, 7 neutral, and only 3 from the right, of which you heard. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Well, it's a pleasure to have Senator Katie Britt of the great state of Alabama. Senator, how are you?
I'm doing wonderfully. Thank you so much for having me on, Mark, to be with you and be in front of your listeners.
It's our pleasure. All right, so you saw the debacle last night. The people of Alabama are very patriotic. They're very smart. They were never going to vote for Biden. But even those who might have, what do you think they think?
there is no way anyone in good conscience could vote for Joe Biden at this point. I mean, look, first, President Trump did a tremendous job on Thursday night. I mean, he was strong. He was sharp. He looked and sounded like a commander-in-chief. I think he did a great job making it clear that he is going to secure our borders. He's going to restore stable prices, safe streets, strong national defense, restore America's respect in the world. And I think there could not have been a greater contrast between his performance and between what we saw from Joe Biden. Look, I said it in my State of the Union response. Joe Biden is a dithering and diminished leader. And obviously that is unfortunate for the United States of America, because as he stood up there last night, I could not help but think to myself, this is not just the Democrats, soon to be nominee for 4 more years, as they would like to see. This guy is the commander-in-chief of the greatest nation on the globe right now. And there is no way in the world he could sit across from Xi Jinping and actually defend America's interest against China. There is no way in the world he could sit down with Vladimir Putin and command the respect to get Vladimir Putin to stop his aggression. There is no way in the world that Iran is going to take him serious. And I think it was a real moment for the American people to get a window into Joe Biden's weakness. And when we look at just the mass influx of migrants at our border, when we look at the chaos in the Middle East, when everyday families are going to the grocery store and know their dollar doesn't go as far as it should, that the man in charge just has no idea, has no plan, and has no ability to put this nation back on the right track.
And yet his surrogates are doing everything humanly possible to destroy Donald Trump through lawfare and other means, and they seem split on whether they want to keep Biden or jettison Biden. But in any event, I've been telling my listeners, these people are, in so many ways, diabolical. They've tried to cover up for Biden all these years. They've attacked people who actually have talked to him and said there's a problem. They've attacked the video and the audio that demonstrates there's a problem. The Attorney General of the United States, asserts some bogus privilege in order to keep the audio from the American people in Congress. So you have this massive cover-up going on, and then all of a sudden the people see who Joe Biden is. We knew, but now everybody knows. And so you have the New York Times saying he needs to be jettisoned. By the way, why should we listen to anything the New York Times says, given that they're the leaders of the cover-up operation?
Absolutely, Mark. I mean, you've just nailed it. First off, the media is completely and totally dishonest in a number of ways, particularly what we're seeing right here. Here they are beginning immediately. You've seen a number of them start to try to cover up for Joe Biden. They are unable to just call balls and strikes, and the American people can see straight through it. I mean, think about this. Out of the first couple of minutes of Joe Biden's mouth, he began to say that no service member has lost their life under his watch. It was a complete and total disgrace, Mark, to the 13 brave servicemen and women who died in that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan under his leadership. Then you think about the 3 soldiers from Georgia that died. Then you think about the 2 Navy SEALs that died. And the fact that this man would not honor their legacy and then the media would not immediately call him out is absolutely beyond comprehension. Then you think about what he said about late-term abortion. You could ask any Democrat out there, what week is too many weeks for you to take the life of your child out of the womb, and they would literally not answer you. And even the week before we came home for this state work period, we have a live UC of the Born Alive bill, and the Democrats actually blocked it. So they're not interested in telling the truth. They're interested in covering up. And I think what we saw, we got a window into how power hungry the Biden family is, how power hungry his consultants are, and how power hungry his top staffers are, that they would actually put him out there in this state in an attempt to get 4 more years. We know that they are calling the shots. They love the power, and they don't want to give it up, and they'll do anything to keep it. And look, when you think about what Special Counsel Robert Hur wrote about, he wasn't fit to stand trial in a courtroom. It is clear that was accurate. We saw that last night, and I would like to say he is not fit to stand in the Situation Room.
Mm-hmm. Katie Britt, Senator from Alabama, let me ask you this. He's holed up at Camp David with 18 top advisors. Obviously, they saw what was going on. His wife knows what's going on. His closest aides in the White House know. The media know. Schumer knows. And Sanders knows. And all these members of Congress, they know exactly the condition of Joe Biden. Yet they lie. And they lie to the American people. And they lie over and over and over again. It's all about power, isn't it?
It is absolutely about power for every single one of them. And you can see, even in that New York Times editorial, it is about, they want him to step aside, not because he's unfit. They want him to step aside because they don't believe he can beat Donald Trump. And it is that is all that you need to know. They have been holed up with him for, over a week. This was supposed to be Joe Biden at his best. He was not doing other engagements. He was not traveling. He was there in preparation for this moment. And when you see right afterwards his wife, try to tell him, oh, it was great, and you answered every question.
It looked like fifth grade, did it not?
It did. I mean, Mark, were you not? I mean, I just thought.
I was shocked.
I was too. I thought our adversaries across the globe are watching this right now. And they know that if there is a moment to strike, which we've seen over and over again during his 3.5-year tenure, because they knew of his weakness. But you know that they are thinking this is supposed to be the commander-in-chief of the greatest nation on the globe? No way. No way. And so I think others can see through it. The American people can see through it. And the media has done America an incredible disservice, because I think Donald Trump broke the media. They are a shell of themselves, and they cannot, and just for whatever reason, refuse to just call balls and strikes. And we're paying the price, and we saw it last night. Because you know what? Think about this, Mark. We heard just the White House try to spin all of this, just over a week ago, saying that these were, what did they call them? Cheap,
I don't remember. Some phony line.
Trying to confuse the American people, trying to pretend like these were AI-generated. These were not AI-generated moments. They were real moments of Joe Biden being unable and truly showing that he's unfit to be the president of the United States.
When we come back with Senator Katie Britt, Alabama, my question for you is this. If you're the regime in Iran, you're the regime in North Korea, you're the regime in Communist China, you're the regime in Russia, you're our enemies. You watched that debate last night. Isn't that provocative? In other words, they're thinking to themselves, maybe we better act sooner than later? That's my question. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
We're here with Senator Katie Britt of the great state of Alabama. I've been to Alabama. It really is a great state. And it's a pleasure to have her with us. So, Senator, you're the enemy. You're watching this. You're Hamas. You're Iran. Apart from laughing, could this not be provocative when they see a president of the United States this way?
Mark, unfortunately, you are 100% correct. I mean, Biden's disastrous debate performance, it emboldened our adversaries from Iran to Russia to China to North Korea. They know that these next 4 months until the election are their best opportunity to just walk all over us, because it is clear that Biden is both weak and lost. I mean, this is going to be an especially dangerous time for our country. Look, we'll restore peace through strength when President Trump gets back in office. But sincerely, let's talk about where we are right now. Like, if you just look at our homeland, there is immense financial pressure, with people knowing that the dollar in their pocket does not go as far, people not being able to achieve the American dream under this Biden administration and his policies and regulations and et cetera. But you also look at what he's done with anti-Semitism, and he refuses to stand up against it in this nation. I mean, never again is being tested before right here on our homeland, and he is consistently failing that test. And they're seeing that. They're seeing that this administration refuses to just call good, good, and evil, evil. And so they're preying on that. Look at what's happening at our border, Mark. I mean, just take a look. You've had over, 10 million people come here illegally since President Biden took office. That includes approximately 1.9 million gotaways, which means we have no idea who those people are, where they're going, or what their intentions are, because we never touch gloves with them. And you think about this. This administration knows how to stop this. They know how to secure the border. They just told us a few weeks ago that, okay, we're going to finally do some executive orders. Now, their executive orders are not near enough and don't actually solve the problem, but they know that they are capable of doing it, and it showed that. And you think about this, just a few weeks ago, 8 members of ISIS-K caught on our homeland. We know that there have been hundreds of known terrorists come across our border. The FBI director said just a few months ago, there are blinking lights everywhere. I don't know what it's going to take for this administration to wake up, to start actually using the tools in their toolbox against Iran, start waking up to what is happening across the globe, what is happening here at home, and actually put Americans and our safety and put out and peace first. They sincerely do not know how, Mark. Do you not agree?
100%. I can't believe they do what they do. It's absolutely irrational unless they want to do some dastardly things like get these people into the country, get them on government benefits. They have children in this country, get them registered as Democrats, have the impact on the congressional redistricting. Because the Democrat Party is all about, as I say, power. It's power is first, second, and third with these people. You see it in the Senate. You see Schumer. You see Bernie Sanders. It's government, more government, centralized government. They don't talk about individual liberty. They don't talk about private property rights. They spit on the founders and the framers. They wave around the Constitution in order to destroy the Constitution. That's what I see in the United States Senate. Let me ask you something. You were talking about the Born Alive Act. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And the Democrats wouldn't allow a vote on it?
Yes, that's exactly right. So last night, what you saw was Joe Biden completely and totally being dishonest about where he stands when it comes to taking the life of a child the moment before a child is born, and what we have seen on the Senate floor just in the last few weeks. And what is so frustrating is, as we just mentioned earlier, yet again, the media will not call him out on this. So if you look at the Born Alive Act, Senator Thune actually said, he came to the floor and wanted to do a live UC, because this is something that we should all be able to agree on, right? I mean, first off, I would hope that we could all agree that you shouldn't be able to take the life of a child the moment before a child is born, but Democrats refuse to actually say that, and refuse to, this year alone, Mark, this administration did not include the Hyde Amendment when it actually asked for its budgeting. I called them out on that, and I said, you want us to be able to fund these abortions up to the moment of birth, and it's absolutely disgusting and despicable. But the Born Alive Act would ensure that babies born alive during an abortion attempt get the medical care that they need, just like normal newborns. And the Democrats came to the floor and they objected. I have retweeted that. We have got to get that out, because the media is not calling Joe Biden. And look, it's disgusting. Can you imagine a baby, it is absolutely disgusting and despicable. And listen, we are one of 7 nations that allow you to take the life of a child the moment before a child is born. In 7 states in the District of Columbia, you can do that. Putting in these things should be universal. We should all be able to say, if a child is born alive, we need to save that child. And yet the Democrats objected. So they're not only okay with late-term abortions, they want to use your money to do that. And like President Trump said, they are radicals. I think they are out of step with the American people. And as we are starting to tell this story, I mean, I went through at a hearing, Mark, and told what happens to a child at 38, 39 weeks when the mother chooses to take the life of that child, and what that means for that child and how they kill that child. And it will
horrendous.
It is horrendous. And so now that we are exposing how radical they are on this issue, you can see them backpedaling. And I think we keep the pressure on. We show that they are the radicals on this issue. To your point about government, I mean, let's look at what they're doing there. I mean, they use the administrative state in every way possible, Mark. I mean, the administrative state, the quote, what I call the fourth branch of government, has got to be reined in. And this administration has been using it wildly and appropriately. That's why Chevron today, obviously Chevron deference, I think that is a huge win for conservatives as we look to put the power back where the people wanted it. You know, Article 1 is Congress for a reason. Article 2, executive branch. Article 3, judicial branch. You know, we need to do our job and stop allowing the administrative state to promulgate rules and regulations that hurt everyday people. They have a wild left-wing agenda, Mark, and I have been disgusted in my first 18 months in the U.S. Senate to watch them infiltrate that agenda into every single facet of government, pinning down Americans and not allowing them to achieve, not allowing them to have their personal liberties, and ultimately trying to expand the government, which I believe hurts the American people.
So if the nation wants to learn more about you, what is your official website?
Yes, well, I would absolutely love it. KatieBritt.com, and then obviously Katie Britt for Senate.com, but KatieBritt.com. So just go to that, and they can. Thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate it. And I just appreciate what you continue to do, because there's no doubt after last night that our enemies are more emboldened. And we've already seen a disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, the largest war in Europe since World War II. We look at what's happening in the Middle East. It's on fire. You've got Russia and North Korea entering into a defense pact. You've got China building up their military in order to take Taiwan.
Stunning.
I mean, we're at a crisis point right now, and it showed last night that man is in no way, shape, or form capable of being the commander-in-chief at any point, but certainly not at this critical juncture in our nation's history.
And thank God for the Redstone Arsenal, by the way. I just wanted to say that as well.
You.
All right.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for your kind words about Alabama. Alabama loves you, that's for sure.
Well, you're terrific, Senator. It's a pleasure to have you as a friend of the program. You take care of yourself.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. God bless. That's Senator Katie Britt of Alabama. She really is fantastic. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
What do you want from me, Mr. Producer? Okay. Well, I want to say this to you folks before we get to Ray Charles. It's been a hell of a week. Next week will be as well. But I want you to keep something in mind. There's tens of millions of us who love this country, who feel and think the same way we do. And we have children and we have grandchildren. And we're not going to roll over to this tyranny. And you can see we're already pushing back. Trump is pushing back to the court. We won't win them all, but we'll win some, and that's good. The key is to win the election. We go to America every Friday in honor of you. Here we go. Folks, don't forget, Saturday and Sunday. That is tomorrow night and Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Central. You know where you are. Life, Liberty, and Levin, 2 killer programs on the Fox News Channel. Please check us out. In fact, go ahead and set up your DVR and record the program. I want everybody to do that. The week is officially over. The weekend begins now, and have a fantastic weekend. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, our brothers and sisters in Ukraine and Israel. Good night, Spritey and Griffey and Pepsi. Good night, Zelda, Smokey and Gigi. Good night, Indy and Patton, Rory and Marty and Barney. Good night, Dad. Good night, Mom. Good night, Leo. Good night, Bernie. Good night, Joe. Good night, Teddy. Good night, Lou. Good night, all of you blessed souls. I'll see you tomorrow night on Life, Liberty, and Levin. Set your DVR as well. And I will see you on radio on Monday. Chin up, smile, relax. God bless.